The stars above Earth twinkled like tiny diamonds, scattered across a black velvet sky. It was a peaceful night, the kind that made people feel small but connected to something much bigger. But that peace was about to shatter. Far beyond the moon, a fleet of alien ships moved silently through the void of space. These ships were massive, their sleek metallic surfaces reflecting no light, making them almost invisible against the endless darkness. At the helm of the largest ship stood Commander Zillar, a towering figure with skin that shimmered faintly under the glow of his control panel. His sharp eyes scanned the readings before him, narrowing as he focused on one particular detail: Earth's atmosphere. Zillar had heard stories about this planet. Humans, fragile beings who lived short lives filled with chaos and emotion. He never understood why anyone would waste resources studying such creatures. Yet here he was, leading an expedition to determine whether Earth was worth saving or destroying. As his sensors analyzed the planet, something unusual caught his attention. Hidden within Earth's atmosphere was a dense layer of microscopic machines, self-replicating and spreading rapidly. This discovery puzzled him. How could such primitive beings create something so advanced? It didn't make sense, and Zillar hated things that didn't make sense. Back on Earth, Daniel Carter sat hunched over his computer in a dimly lit lab at NASA headquarters. His fingers flew across the keyboard as lines of code scrolled past on the screen. Something strange had appeared in the data from the agency's deep space telescopes, a series of energy spikes coming from outside the solar system. At first, Daniel thought it might be interference or a glitch, but when he cross-referenced the information with other observatories around the world, the pattern became undeniable. Whatever it wasn't natural. "Rachel," Daniel called out, swiveling his chair toward the desk next to him. Rachel Monroe looked up from her work, her dark hair tied back into a loose bun. She raised an eyebrow at his urgent tone. "What is it now?" she asked, setting down her pen. "You need to see this," Daniel replied, pointing at his monitor. Rachel leaned closer, her brow furrowing as she studied the graphs and charts displayed on the screen. After a moment, she straightened up, crossing her arms. "It could just be cosmic noise," she said skeptically. "There's no reason to jump to conclusions." "But what if it's not?" Daniel pressed. "What if it's something else?" Rachel hesitated. She wanted to dismiss his concerns, but there was something about the intensity in his voice that made her pause. "Fine," she said finally. "Let me run some simulations. If it turns out to be important, we'll tell someone. Until then, try not to lose sleep over it." As Rachel worked on the calculations, neither of them realized how quickly events would spiral out of control. Hours later, news outlets began reporting sightings of strange lights moving across the sky. Social media exploded with videos and photos, each more alarming than the last. Governments scrambled to respond, unsure whether the phenomenon was man-made or extraterrestrial. By dawn, the truth became impossible to ignore. A holographic message appeared on every television, phone, and computer screen worldwide. The figure speaking was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Tall, angular, and glowing faintly, its voice echoed with an eerie calmness. "We are the Exotherians," it declared. "Your species is weak, your existence fleeting. Do not resist us." Daniel and Rachel watched in stunned silence as the transmission ended. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Rachel broke the quiet. "So much for cosmic noise," she muttered. The world was in chaos. The Exotherians' message had spread like wildfire, leaving billions of people scared and confused. Streets filled with panicked crowds, while others locked themselves indoors, glued to their screens for any updates. Governments held emergency meetings, but no one knew what to do. The aliens hadn't attacked yet, but their words, "You do not resist us," hung heavy in the air like a storm about to break. At NASA headquarters, Daniel Carter and Rachel Monroe were called into a secure conference room. A group of officials sat around a large table, their faces grim. Among them was Jack Harper, a stern man in his late 40s with sharp features and a military buzz cut. His arms were crossed as he listened to the scientists explain what they knew so far. Beside him sat Emily Dawson, a quiet woman with glasses who scribbled notes furiously on a notepad. "So let me get this straight," Jack said, leaning forward. "You're telling me these things showed up out of nowhere, insulted us, and now we're just supposed to sit here and wait for them to make their move?" "It's not that simple," Rachel replied, trying to stay calm. "We don't even know why they're here or what they want. All we have is data, and it's incomplete." Jack shook his head. "Data won't stop them if they decide to attack. We need weapons, strategy, something tangible." Emily looked up from her notes. "Actually," she said softly, "there might be another way." Everyone turned to her, surprised by her sudden input. She cleared her throat before continuing. "I've been analyzing the transmission. Their language. It's complex, but there are patterns. If we can decode more of it, maybe we can figure out how to communicate with them." Daniel nodded eagerly. "That's a good idea. Communication could buy us time, and if we understand them better, we might find a way to negotiate." Jack frowned. "Negotiate? With invaders? You really think they're here to talk?" Rachel stepped in before the argument escalated. "We don't know their intentions yet. Yes, they sounded hostile, but that doesn't mean diplomacy is off the table. For now, we should focus on gathering as much information as possible." The room fell silent as everyone considered their options. Finally, one of the officials spoke up. "All right, let's split responsibilities. Harper, you'll coordinate with military forces in case things go south. Dawson, keep working on deciphering their language. And Carter, Monroe, you two dig deeper into whatever weird signals you found earlier. Maybe there's something useful there." As the meeting ended, Daniel and Rachel returned to their lab. The atmosphere felt heavier now, weighed down by the enormity of the task ahead. They worked side by side, reviewing satellite images and running simulations. Meanwhile, Emily retreated to her office, poring over recordings of the alien broadcast. Each click and hum seemed random at first, but slowly she began identifying recurring phrases. Hours passed, and tension mounted across the globe. News reports showed cities preparing for the worst. Emergency drills were conducted, shelters stocked, and evacuation plans drawn up. Yet despite the fear gripping humanity, life went on. People still went to work, cooked meals, and cared for their families. Fragile though they might seem, humans carried on because that's what they did best. They adapted. Then came the first sign of action from the Ectherians. Scouting ships descended into Earth's atmosphere, sleek and silent. They hovered over major cities like New York, Tokyo, and London, siphoning energy from power grids. Lights flickered and went out, plunging entire neighborhoods into darkness. Panic surged anew, but governments urged citizens to remain calm. Military jets scrambled to intercept the alien craft, firing missiles that exploded harmlessly against invisible shields. It quickly became clear: traditional weapons were useless. Humanity's greatest tools of war couldn't scratch the surface of Scytherian technology. Back at the lab, Daniel stared at his computer screen, frustration building. "There has to be something we're missing," he muttered under his breath. Rachel placed a hand on his shoulder. "We'll find it," she said firmly. "We have to." Unbeknownst to them, the key to humanity's survival lay hidden in plain sight. In the skies above, where trillions of nanobots floated silently, waiting for their moment to shine. The alien scout ships continued their eerie patrol over Earth's cities, siphoning energy and leaving chaos in their wake. Power outages spread like a virus, plunging entire regions into darkness. Hospitals struggled to keep generators running. Traffic lights failed, and communication networks faltered. The world felt fragile, as if it were teetering on the edge of collapse. But amidst the panic, Daniel Carter refused to give up. In the dim glow of his computer screen, Daniel sifted through old research papers and classified files. He remembered hearing rumors about a secret government project years ago, a failed experiment involving nanotechnology designed to repair environmental damage. At the time, it had been dismissed as a disaster when the nanobots escaped into the atmosphere. Now, he wondered if those tiny machines might hold the key to humanity's survival. "Rachel," Daniel said suddenly, snapping her attention away from the latest satellite data. "What if the nanobots are still out there? What if they evolved?" Rachel frowned, leaning closer to look at the documents he pulled up. "Evolved? You mean like, became smarter?" He nodded. "Think about it. They were programmed to adapt to their environment. If they've been reproducing all this time, who knows what they're capable of now?" Rachel hesitated, her mind racing. It sounded far-fetched, but so did an alien invasion. "If that's true, then maybe we can use them," she said slowly. "But how do we even communicate with something that small?" Daniel tapped a finger against his desk. "We start with math. Patterns, things that transcend language. If they're advanced enough, they'll recognize it." Rachel wasn't convinced, but she didn't have a better idea. "All right," she said finally. "Let's try it. But we'll need help, someone who understands atmospheric science better than we do." They reached out to Dr. Laura Bennett, a retired scientist who had worked on the original nanobot project. Though skeptical at first, Laura agreed to assist once she heard their theory. Together, the trio began designing a signal, a series of mathematical sequences encoded into radio waves that they hoped would catch the nanobots' attention. Meanwhile, Emily Dawson made progress decoding fragments of the Scytherian language. Late one night, hunched over her desk, surrounded by stacks of paper, she uncovered a startling revelation. The aliens viewed humans as inherently weak because of their physical limitations. To the Scytherians, mortality equaled inferiority. This insight gave Rachel an idea. "We need to show them we're not as fragile as they think," Rachel told the team during a late-night meeting. "If the nanobots respond to our signal, maybe we can use them to prove humanity has hidden strength." Jack Harper, ever the skeptic, crossed his arms. "And what happens if your little experiment backfires? What if the nanobots turn on us instead?" "It's a risk," Rachel admitted. "But right now, we don't have many options. Conventional weapons won't work, and diplomacy hasn't gotten us anywhere yet. We have to try something unconventional." Reluctantly, Jack agreed to let them proceed, though he insisted on keeping military forces on standby. As the days passed, tension mounted. The alien scouts grew bolder, venturing deeper into populated areas. People reported strange phenomena: objects floating inexplicably, electronics malfunctioning, and eerie humming sounds filling the air. Fear gripped the planet. But Daniel and his team pressed on. Finally, the day came to test their signal. Using a modified satellite dish, they broadcast the mathematical patterns into the upper atmosphere. For hours, nothing happened. Doubt crept in, and frustration bubbled over. Had they been wrong? Was the theory just wishful thinking? Then, just as they were about to shut down the equipment, something extraordinary occurred. The sky lit up with shimmering patterns, intricate designs formed by trillions of nanobots aligning themselves in response to the signal. It was breathtaking, an undeniable sign that the tiny machines were listening. Rachel stared at the glowing display, her heart pounding. "It worked," she whispered. "They're here." Unbeknownst to the team, the Exetherians noticed the phenomenon too. From their ships high above Earth, Commander Zillar watched the swirling patterns with growing unease. Humanity was supposed to be weak, predictable, yet here they were, demonstrating a level of ingenuity that defied his expectations. For the first time since arriving, doubt flickered in his mind. Back on Earth, Daniel smiled faintly. "Now," he said, "let's see what else they can do." The shimmering patterns in the sky lingered for hours, captivating people around the world. News outlets broadcast live footage of the glowing designs, and social media buzzed with theories about what they meant. Some called it a miracle. Others saw it as humanity's last stand against an alien threat. Whatever the truth was, one thing became clear. Earth had something unexpected up its sleeve. Daniel Carter couldn't take his eyes off the swirling formations. He stood on the rooftop of NASA headquarters, staring upward as the nanobots danced across the atmosphere. Beside him, Rachel Monroe held her breath, watching the spectacle unfold. "They're responding," she murmured, almost to herself. "This changes everything." But not everyone shared their optimism. Jack Harper paced back and forth inside the control room, his face etched with worry. "It's flashy, sure," he said gruffly, pointing at the monitors displaying the light show. "But how does this help us fight back? Pretty lights won't stop those ships from draining our power or blowing us to pieces." Rachel turned to face him, her expression determined. "We don't know yet what these nanobots are capable of. But if we can communicate with them, if we can guide them, they might be able to protect us, maybe even push the aliens away." Jack shook his head. "That's a big if. And what happens if the aliens decide to attack before we figure it out?" Before Rachel could respond, Emily Dawson rushed into the room, clutching a stack of papers. Her face was flushed with excitement. "I found something," she said breathlessly. "In the Thytherian language. There's a pattern that repeats when they talk about strength. It's tied to their concept of dominance. If we amplify the signal and make the nanobots act more aggressively, we might send a message." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Aggressively? You mean like showing force?" Emily nodded. "Exactly. We've already proven we can reach the nanobots. Now let's see if we can use them to defend ourselves." The team debated the idea late into the night. Laura Bennett, the retired scientist, warned about the risks of escalating tensions. "If the nanobots react too strongly, we could provoke the aliens into attacking," she cautioned. "And once that happens, there's no turning back." Despite the warnings, Rachel pushed forward. "We can't just sit here and wait for them to make the next move. This is our chance to show them we're not helpless." With Jack reluctantly agreeing to provide backup in case things went wrong, the team prepared to amplify the signal. Using the same satellite dish, they adjusted the frequency and intensity of the transmission, aiming to trigger a stronger response from the nanobots. Daniel monitored the readings closely, his hands hovering over the controls. "Ready?" he asked, looking at Rachel. She took a deep breath. "Do it." As the new signal pulsed through the atmosphere, the nanobots reacted instantly. The glowing patterns shifted, forming a dense, shimmering barrier high above Earth. Moments later, another wave of alien scout ships descended, attempting to probe deeper into the planet's defenses. But this time, they met resistance. The nanobot shield surged outward, repelling the alien vessels with startling force. Several scouts were thrown off course, spinning wildly before retreating. Others disintegrated upon contact, their sleek hulls unable to withstand the microscopic swarm. Shockwaves rippled through the air, rattling windows and shaking buildings below. Commander Zilar watched the scene unfold from his command ship, his sharp features tightening with disbelief. "What is this?" he demanded, turning to his crew. "How are they doing this?" No one had an answer. For the first time since arriving, the Exetherians hesitated. Their confidence wavered as they realized humanity might possess a defense far beyond anything they'd anticipated. Back on Earth, the team erupted into cheers. Even Jack allowed himself a small smile. "Looks like your crazy plan worked," he admitted grudgingly. But Rachel didn't celebrate just yet. She stared at the monitors, her mind racing. "This isn't over," she said quietly. "We showed them we can fight back, but now they'll come at us harder. We need to prepare for whatever happens next." Unbeknownst to them, Zylar was already plotting his next move. Humanity had surprised him once, but he wouldn't let it happen again. The victory was short-lived. While the nanobot shield had repelled the alien scouts, the cost of activating it became apparent almost immediately. Power grids across the globe flickered and failed as the nanobots consumed vast amounts of energy to maintain their defensive barrier. Factories shut down, hospitals struggled to keep life support machines running, and communication networks faltered under the strain. The world teetered on the brink of chaos. In the control room at NASA headquarters, Daniel Carter stared at the monitors, his excitement fading into concern. "We didn't think this through," he muttered, rubbing his temples. "If we keep using the shield like this, we'll drain Earth's resources faster than we can recover them." Rachel Monroe nodded grimly. "He's right. The nanobots are powerful, but they're not infinite. Every time they act, they need more energy. If we push too hard, we could collapse our own systems." Jack Harper slammed his fist on the table. "Great. So now what? We've got a fancy light show in the sky, but no way to sustain it. Meanwhile, those aliens are probably planning their next move." Emily Dawson looked up from her notes, her voice calm but firm. "Maybe there's another way. Instead of relying solely on the shield, we could try communicating with the Exetherians directly. Show them that humanity isn't just about brute force. We're adaptable, creative, maybe even worth sparing." Rachel's eyes lit up. "That's not a bad idea. If we can prove to them that we're more than just fragile beings, maybe they'll reconsider attacking us." Daniel hesitated. "But how do we even start talking to them? They've already made it clear they see us as inferior." Emily held up a sheet of paper covered in scribbles. "By showing them something universal, something that transcends language, like art or music or mathematics, something that proves intelligence without needing words." The team agreed to give it a shot. Using the same satellite dish that had communicated with the nanobots, they began crafting a new signal. This time, instead of focusing on patterns meant to trigger aggression, they encoded messages of peace, mathematical sequences paired with harmonious tones inspired by Earth's natural sounds. It was a gamble, but it might be their only chance to avoid all-out war. As the signal broadcast into space, Commander Ziller watched his sensors closely. His crew buzzed with nervous energy, unsure how to interpret the strange transmission coming from Earth. "It's some kind of pattern," one of his officers reported. "Different from before. Less aggressive, more deliberate." Ziller frowned. Humanity continued to surprise him, and he didn't like surprises. Still, he couldn't deny the ingenuity behind their actions. For creatures deemed so fragile, they were proving remarkably resourceful. Back on Earth, tensions ran high as the team waited for a response. Hours passed, then days. Just when hope began to fade, something unexpected happened. A second holographic message appeared worldwide, a stark contrast to the cold, condescending tone of the first transmission. This time, the alien figure spoke slowly, its glowing form pulsing gently as if mimicking the harmonic tones sent earlier. "We have observed your actions," the voice said, deeper and less threatening than before. "You are unpredictable. Explain yourselves." The room erupted into stunned silence. Emily clutched her notes tightly, her hands trembling. "They're listening," she whispered. They actually listened. Rachel stepped forward, addressing the screen as if the aliens could hear her directly. "Now's our chance," she said firmly. "Let's show them who we really are." Unbeknownst to the team, however, not everyone aboard the Exetherian fleet agreed with Ziller's cautious approach. Lieutenant Varn, a younger officer with sharp features and calculating eyes, argued privately with his commander. "These humans are dangerous," Varn insisted. "Their adaptability makes them unpredictable. We should strike now, while we still can." Ziller dismissed him with a wave of his hand. "Patience, Varn. There is much we do not understand yet." But Varn wasn't convinced. As he walked away, his mind raced with thoughts of rebellion and survival. The holographic message from the Exetherians left humanity holding its breath. For the first time, there was a glimmer of hope that diplomacy might work. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming, not just among humans, but within the alien fleet as well. At NASA headquarters, the team scrambled to craft a response. Emily Dawson pored over her notes, trying to refine the language she had decoded. "We need to keep it simple," she said, tapping her pen against the desk. "Something universal. Maybe we show them images. Pictures of Earth, our cities, our people. Something that proves we're more than just fragile beings." Rachel Monroe nodded. "And we should include proof of what we've done with the nanobots. Show them we can adapt, innovate. That might make them think twice about attacking us." Daniel Carter worked tirelessly to encode the new message into the satellite signal. He included mathematical patterns, harmonious tones, and visual data depicting Earth's beauty and complexity. As he finished, he leaned back in his chair, exhausted but hopeful. "This could be our best shot," he said quietly. Jack Harper, however, wasn't convinced. Pacing the room with crossed arms, he muttered under his breath, "What if this is all a trick? What if they're just buying time to plan something bigger?" Rachel turned to him, her voice steady. "We don't have many options left, Jack. If we don't try this, we risk losing everything. At least this way, we might buy ourselves some time, or even find a way to coexist." Reluctantly, Jack agreed to let them proceed. The signal was broadcast into space, carrying humanity's plea for understanding. For hours, the team waited anxiously, watching monitors and scanning the skies for any sign of a response. Meanwhile, aboard the Scytherian flagship, Commander Ziller reviewed the human transmission. His glowing eyes narrowed as he studied the images and patterns sent by Earth. "They are clever," he admitted aloud, though no one else was in the room. Perhaps too clever. Lieutenant Varn, however, saw things differently. In secret meetings with other crew members, he argued that humanity's ingenuity posed a threat. "They adapt quickly," Varn warned. "If we allow them to grow stronger, they will become unstoppable. We must destroy them now before it's too late." His words found traction among some of the crew, who shared his fears. Tensions aboard the ship grew as factions began to form. Those who supported Ziller's cautious approach and those who sided with Varn's aggressive stance. Back on Earth, the wait felt endless. Just when frustration threatened to boil over, another message arrived. This time, it came not from Ziller, but from an unknown source within the Scytherian fleet. The hologram displayed a different alien figure, one slightly shorter than Ziller, with sharper features and a colder demeanor. "We see your potential," the voice said, devoid of warmth. "But trust must be earned. Prove yourselves worthy or face annihilation." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the team stunned. Rachel broke the silence. Was that a challenge? Emily frowned, flipping through her notes. "It sounds like someone else is taking charge. Someone who doesn't agree with Ziller." Daniel rubbed his temples. "So now what? Do we prove ourselves by fighting, or by showing more creativity?" Before they could decide, disaster struck. Against orders, Jack launched a covert missile strike, targeting one of the alien scout ships hovering near Earth's atmosphere. Believing the attack would weaken the invaders, he acted without consulting the rest of the team. The missile exploded harmlessly against the ship's shields, but the retaliation was swift and brutal. The alien vessel unleashed a pulse of energy that destabilized the nanobot shield, causing it to flicker and collapse in parts. Shockwaves rippled across continents, triggering earthquakes and tidal waves. Cities shook, buildings crumbled, and panic spread once again. Rachel confronted Jack furiously. "What have you done? You've ruined everything." Jack stood firm, though guilt flickered in his eyes. "I did what I thought was necessary. Sitting around waiting for them to make a move wasn't going to save us." As chaos unfolded below, Commander Ziller faced mutiny aboard his ship. Varn rallied his supporters, accusing Ziller of weakness and incompetence. With tensions at their breaking point, the fate of both species hung precariously in the balance. The mutiny aboard the Scytherian flagship erupted like a storm. Lieutenant Varn, his glowing eyes blazing with determination, led a group of rebels through the ship's corridors. They moved swiftly, their weapons drawn, heading straight for the command center where Ziller stood alone. The commander had sensed trouble brewing, but hadn't acted quickly enough to stop it. "You've failed us," Varn declared as he barged into the room, his voice sharp and accusing. "Your hesitation has put our people at risk. These humans, they're not weak. They're dangerous, and you refuse to see it." Ziller turned to face him, his expression calm despite the tension in the air. "And your solution is what, Varn? To destroy them without understanding them, without knowing if they could help us." "They don't want to help," Varn snapped. "They attacked us. Does that sound like cooperation to you?" Before Ziller could respond, the rebels surrounded him, their weapons trained on his chest. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then, without warning, Varn fired a burst of energy, striking Ziller and sending him crashing to the floor. The crew gasped, some stepping back in fear while others cheered Varn's boldness. "From this moment forward," Varn announced, addressing the stunned crew, "I will lead. We will deal with these humans the way they deserve, with force." As Varn took control of the flagship, Earth struggled to recover from the aftermath of Jack Harper's reckless missile strike. The nanobot shield, weakened by the alien retaliation, flickered erratically across the atmosphere. Cities lay in ruins, and millions were displaced. The human coalition tasked with responding to the invasion was fractured, with blame falling squarely on Jack's shoulders. "You had no right to act alone," Rachel Monroe shouted during an emergency meeting. Her face was flushed with anger, her hands clenched into fists. "Your actions cost lives, Jack. Lives we can never get back." Jack glared at her, his jaw tight. "I was trying to protect us. Sitting around waiting for them to decide our fate wasn't going to work." Daniel Carter stepped between them, his voice steady but firm. "Fighting among ourselves won't fix anything. Right now, we need to focus on repairing the shield, or finding another way to defend ourselves." Emily Dawson nodded in agreement. "He's right. If we can stabilize the nanobots again, maybe we can regain some ground. But we'll have to work together." Reluctantly, the team set aside their differences and returned to the lab. Using backup generators, they rerouted power to the satellite dish and attempted to reconnect with the nanobots. It was slow, painstaking work, but eventually, the shield began to stabilize. Though not fully, gaps remained, leaving parts of Earth vulnerable to further attacks. Meanwhile, Varn wasted no time asserting his authority. He ordered the fleet to prepare for a full-scale assault, aiming to crush humanity once and for all. But before launching the attack, he reviewed intercepted transmissions from Earth. One message caught his attention, a fragment of Rachel's earlier plea for coexistence. Intrigued, Varn replayed it, studying the soft tones and careful words. "These humans, they're desperate," he muttered to himself. "But desperation breeds innovation. Perhaps there's more to them than I thought." Varn hesitated, torn between his desire to destroy humanity and the possibility that they might offer something valuable. His advisors urged him to strike immediately, but deep down, doubt lingered. Could wiping out an entire species, especially one showing such resilience, be the right choice? Back on Earth, Rachel proposed a risky plan. "If Varn sees us as a threat, maybe we need to show him otherwise. Let's send another message, not just explaining who we are, but offering help. Maybe they're struggling too." Daniel frowned. "Helping them, after everything they've done?" Rachel met his gaze. "It's the only way to prove we're worth saving. If we can find common ground, maybe we can end this without more bloodshed." With nothing left to lose, the team crafted one final message. As it pulsed into space, hope flickered faintly in their hearts. Unbeknownst to them, Varn watched the transmission closely, his resolve wavering. The battle for Earth's future hung precariously in the balance. Varn stared at the screen, his glowing form casting faint reflections on the dark walls of the command center. The human message played again. Images of Earth's beauty, its struggles, and its resilience. Words spoken in tones of calm determination echoed through the ship. "We are not your enemies. We seek peace, not war. Let us work together. For a moment, Varn felt something he hadn't expected: doubt. These humans were resourceful, adaptable, and creative. They had proven capable of defending themselves with their nanobot shield, even after suffering setbacks. But more than that, they were willing to extend an olive branch, despite everything his fleet had done. Why would they offer help? One of his advisors asked, breaking the silence. It makes no sense. They know we came here to conquer them. Varn didn't answer right away. He leaned forward, studying the images closely. There was something about the way the humans presented themselves, not as fragile beings begging for mercy, but as equals seeking understanding. It unsettled him. Maybe they're trying to trick us, he said finally. Or maybe they see value in cooperation. His advisor scoffed. Value? In what? Their technology is primitive compared to ours. Varn shook his head. Not all value comes from weapons or shields. Look at how they've adapted, how they've survived. What if they have something we need? The thought lingered in his mind. His people weren't invincible. They were refugees, fleeing a dying star system in search of a new home. Resources were scarce, and their journey had been long and grueling. Perhaps humanity's ingenuity could benefit the Exetherians if they could set aside their pride. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Rachel Monroe and her team waited anxiously for a response. Days passed without any sign of retaliation from the alien fleet. The gaps in the nanobot shield remained, leaving everyone on edge. Jack Harper paced the control room, muttering under his breath, "This waiting is killing us. Either they attack or they don't. Why can't they just make up their minds?" Rachel ignored him, focusing instead on monitoring the atmospheric readings. Patience, Jack. Sometimes silence is better than destruction. Daniel Carter worked alongside Emily Dawson, refining their communication strategy. If Varn, or whoever's in charge now, is considering our offer, we need to show them proof, Daniel said. Something tangible. Emily nodded. What if we share data about the nanobots? Show them how we've harnessed advanced technology ourselves. Maybe that'll convince them we're worth working with. The idea sparked hope. Together, they compiled detailed information about the nanobots' evolution, their capabilities, and potential applications. This new message was sent into space, carrying both an invitation for collaboration and evidence of humanity's scientific achievements. Hours later, a response finally came. The holographic transmission appeared once again, this time showing Varn himself. His sharp features softened slightly as he addressed Earth. Your proposal intrigues us. You claim you wish to help. Prove it. Rachel stepped forward, speaking directly to the screen. Tell us what you need. If we can assist, we will. But we ask for safe passage for your ships to settle elsewhere in our solar system, a place where neither side threatens the other. Varn hesitated, visibly weighing the offer. His crew whispered among themselves, some nodding in agreement while others frowned in suspicion. Finally, he spoke. Very well. We will consider your terms. But know this, if you betray us, there will be consequences. As the transmission ended, relief washed over the team. Rachel slumped into a chair, her hands trembling. Did we just negotiate with an alien fleet? Daniel grinned weakly. Looks like it. Jack crossed his arms, still skeptical. Don't celebrate yet. Trusting them is risky. He's right, Rachel admitted. But for now, it's progress. And progress is something we haven't had in a long time. Unbeknownst to them, Varn faced resistance within his own ranks. Some of his advisors argued against trusting humanity, warning that coexistence might weaken the Exetherians' position. Others, however, saw the logic in Rachel's proposal. As debates raged aboard the flagship, Varn made a decision. He would test humanity's sincerity by sending a small envoy to meet with them, face to face. The stage was set for a fragile truce, but whether it would hold depended on the actions of both species in the days to come. The Exetherian envoy arrived on Earth under tense circumstances. A sleek, silver shuttle descended from the sky, landing in a remote desert chosen for its isolation and security. Rachel Monroe, Daniel Carter, Jack Harper, and Emily Dawson stood at the edge of the landing site, their hearts pounding as the craft's hatch hissed open. Out stepped three aliens, their forms tall and angular, glowing faintly in the sunlight. Varn led the group, his sharp eyes scanning the humans with suspicion. Behind him were two officers, their expressions unreadable. The air was thick with uncertainty as both sides faced each other for the first time. Rachel stepped forward, her voice steady despite the nerves twisting in her stomach. "Welcome to Earth," she said simply. "We hope this meeting can lead to peace." Varn tilted his head slightly, studying her. "Your words are polite, but actions speak louder. Show us what you promised." With that, the team escorted the aliens to a nearby facility where they had prepared demonstrations of humanity's ingenuity. Using holographic displays and live experiments, they showcased advancements in medicine, agriculture, and technology, including insights into the nanobots' capabilities. Varn watched closely, occasionally asking questions through Emily, who translated using the language patterns she had decoded. At one point, Daniel demonstrated how the nanobots could repair damaged materials by restoring a shattered piece of metal before their eyes. One of the Exetherian officers leaned closer, clearly intrigued. "This process, it is efficient," he remarked, his tone softer than before. But not everyone was convinced. Back aboard the flagship, dissent brewed among those who opposed Varn's decision to negotiate. A faction of crew members, still loyal to Xyler, now imprisoned, argued that trusting humans was a mistake. They believed coexistence would weaken the Exetherians' dominance and leave them vulnerable. "They're manipulating us," one officer shouted during a heated meeting. "Once they learn our weaknesses, they'll turn on us." Others countered that survival depended on adaptation. "Our resources are dwindling," another argued. "If these humans can help, shouldn't we take the chance?" While debates raged in space, tensions flared on Earth as well. Jack Harper grew increasingly frustrated with the slow progress of negotiations. Late one night, he confronted Rachel in private. "You really think they're going to honor this deal?" he demanded. "They've shown nothing but hostility since day one." "We don't have a choice, Jack," Rachel replied firmly. "If we don't try, we lose everything. Fighting isn't working. This might be our only shot." Jack clenched his fists but didn't argue further. Still, his distrust simmered beneath the surface. The next day, disaster struck. During a routine test of the nanobot shield, an unexpected surge caused part of the barrier to collapse entirely. Alarms blared as alien scout ships immediately moved to exploit the gap. Chaos erupted as military forces scrambled to respond. In the confusion, Varn accused the humans of betrayal. "You lied to us," he snarled, stepping toward Rachel. "You let your defenses fall deliberately." "It wasn't deliberate," Rachel insisted, her voice rising. "We're repairing it now." Before the situation could escalate, Daniel intervened, showing real-time data proving the collapse was accidental. Reluctantly, Varn backed down, but the damage was done. Trust between the two sides wavered dangerously. That evening, Rachel addressed the team in the control room. "This incident proves we're walking a tightrope," she said. "One wrong move, and everything falls apart. We need to stay vigilant and honest." Daniel nodded. "Agreed. But we also need to show them we're serious about making this work." As repairs continued and tempers cooled, Varn returned to his ship, deep in thought. Humanity was unpredictable, yes, but perhaps that unpredictability was exactly what his people needed to survive. For the first time, he wondered if cooperation might truly be possible. Unbeknownst to all, however, factions within the Exetherian fleet were plotting rebellion against Varn's leadership. The fragile truce teetered on the brink of collapse once again. The tension aboard the Exetherian flagship reached a boiling point. Varn stood in the command center, his glowing form flickering faintly as he faced a group of mutinous officers. They accused him of weakness, claiming his negotiations with humanity were putting their entire fleet at risk. "You've grown soft," one officer spat. "These humans are dangerous. They'll destroy us if given the chance." Varn's voice remained calm, though his fists clenched tightly. "I understand your fears, but trust is a two-way street. If we act rashly now, we lose any hope of survival. Would you rather die stubbornly or live by adapting?" His words fell on deaf ears. The rebels grew louder, their anger fueling calls for Ziller's release from imprisonment. Varn realized then that compromise was no longer an option. With swift precision, he ordered loyal crew members to subdue the mutineers. It wasn't easy. Chaos erupted as energy blasts lit up the corridors. But ultimately, Varn regained control. Those who opposed him were detained, and Ziller remained locked away. On Earth, Rachel Monroe and her team worked tirelessly to stabilize the nanobot shield while maintaining open lines of communication with Varn. Despite the earlier collapse, progress was made, and the barrier began holding steady once again. Jack Harper still grumbled about trusting the aliens, but even he couldn't deny the value of cooperation when it brought results. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky orange and pink, Varn sent a final message to Earth. This time, his tone was different, less guarded, almost reflective. "Your species has proven itself adaptable, resilient," he said through the hologram. "We will honor our agreement. My fleet will settle on Europa, as proposed. In return, we offer our knowledge, technology to improve your medicine, agriculture, and sustainability." Rachel exchanged glances with Daniel and Emily, relief washing over them like a warm breeze. "Thank you," she replied simply. "This is a new beginning, for both of us." As the alien ships began relocating to Jupiter's moon, people around the world watched in awe. For so long, fear had ruled their lives, but now there was hope. A fragile yet powerful bond forged between two vastly different species. News outlets celebrated the truce, calling it a triumph of diplomacy over destruction. In the weeks that followed, the collaboration flourished. Scytherian scientists shared advanced techniques for growing crops in harsh environments, curing diseases, and purifying water. Humanity, in turn, offered cultural exchanges, music, art, and stories that showcased the depth of human emotion and creativity. Varn himself expressed fascination with Earth's literature, particularly tales of survival and unity. But the scars of conflict lingered. Cities bore the marks of devastation, and millions mourned loved ones lost during the invasion. Yet, amidst the pain, humanity found strength. People rebuilt homes, repaired relationships, and looked toward the stars with renewed determination. Daniel often reflected on how close they'd come to annihilation. Standing under the shimmering nanobot shield one night, he turned to Rachel. "Do you think we'll ever fully trust them?" Rachel smiled faintly. "Trust takes time, but I believe we can get there if we keep choosing peace over fear." Jack, too, softened over time. Watching children play beneath clear skies, free from the shadow of war, reminded him why they'd fought so hard. Even Emily found joy in teaching Scytherians about human language and culture, bridging gaps thought impossible to cross. As life settled into a cautious rhythm, Daniel gazed upward, his eyes tracing the path of a distant star. He thought about all they'd endured, the fragility of humanity laid bare, only to reveal hidden resilience. Earth was no longer just a planet. It was proof that even the smallest beings could change the course of destiny. And somewhere far above, on Europa, Varn stood watching Earth through a viewport. His expression softened as he considered the future, not just for his people, but for the alliance they'd forged. Fragile as it was, it held promise. For the first time in years, both species dared to dream of a brighter tomorrow.